Tetzaveh. Now I'm going to do with you for the last few moments, I'm going to study with you the Haftorah for the Parsha Vayakail, and that will conclude our study of the book of Shmos. And the Parsha Vayakail, according to the Ashkenazi, is taken from Malachim, Vayas Hiram. Now, in the Parsha of Vayakail, we have a description again of the conclusion of the building of the Beis Hamikdash, of the Mishkan. Here we have a description of the conclusion of the building of Shlomo HaMelech's Beis Hamikdash. Now, Shlomo HaMelech contracted out much of the Beis Hamikdash. It was built by Hiram Melech Tzor, Hiram, the king of Tyre, who was an ally of Shlomo and who had raw materials and great artisans and workmen, and he is the man under his direction that much of the first Beis Hamikdash was built. So it says, Vayas Hiram es hakiyoros. Hiram made the fountains that Shlomo installed in the Beis Hamikdash, Vesayoim, Vesamizrakos. These are all the kalim that were built. So these were cups that held the blood, and the mizrakos were the means by which the blood was sprinkled. Vayakail hiram lasos es kol hamalocha asher oso lamelech Shlomo beis Hashem. He completed all the work that he was supposed to do, all the work that was assigned to him, all that was contracted, everything that King Solomon gave him to build. And here there's a description of everything that was. Amudim Shnayim, the two main pillars. The two main pillars were called Yochin and Boaz. They had a name. One pillar was called Yochin and one pillar was called Boaz. And they supported the roof. The gulos ha-koseres ashal roshu amudim shtoyim, the capitals that were on top of the pillars. So they were with a tremendous artistic design. And then they had on top two covers which were on top of the capitals to protect the capitals so that the decoration on the capitals should not be crushed by the weight. So it came in three pieces. It came in columns. The columns had a capital. On top of the capital there was a protective cap. And then on top of the capitals they hung, and this was made from gold, they hung pomegranates made from gold, and they had 400 of them. Lishtei asvochos, for each of these caps. Shnei turim rimonim asvocho echos, 2 rows for each capital. Lachasos ishtei gulos hakosoros, and it went around the 2 capitals so it looked like live pomegranates even though it was made of gold. The Medrash says that they burnished the gold such that it looked red like the pomegranates. Asher al pnei amudi, and that covered these 2 pillars, Yochin and Boaz. In the first Beis Hamikdash, the pillars were like, they had personalities, that's why they had names. The inanimate objects were like alive. Then Shlomo HaMelech had a tremendous fountain. It was called the Yam Shel Shlomo. And it rested on the back of 12 bronze cast oxen. It was an enormous fountain. And underneath the oxen he had 10 foundations to hold it because it was so heavy. And he had 10 fountains that spouted water on these foundations. And the 10 fountains made like one large pond in this tremendous bronze dish. And the 12 bronze oxen that supported this dish that had the water in it. So people came from all over the world to see it. It was one of the wonders of the world. The Talmud asked all the question, how was he did this, the Novi gave him permission to do it, because these were all forms and statues and graven images, etc. But the Shlomo HaMelech and the first Beis HaMikdash was allowed to do it. And the second Beis HaMikdash did not have any. This was all destroyed, all taken away, all destroyed. The pots and the dishes and all the things that were necessary for the operation of the Beis HaMikdash, all the kelim, all the utensils, everything was made by hiram, and it was handmade by artisans. It was specially made. Asher also hiram lamelech Shlomo Beis Hashem, all of these things which were produced by Hiram, the king of Tzor, on behalf of Shlomo HaMelech, to be installed Beis Hashem. Now Shlomo at the same time built his palace, which was also one of the wonders of the ancient world, and Hiram helped him build that too. But he had separate artisans work on it. So this was set aside exclusively for Beis Hashem, for God's house. He didn't want to mix it with I imagine he made him silverware and china, etc., for his palace, which also we have no remnant of whatsoever. We may have in the city of David, south of Jerusalem. When you go down into the valley, there is the remnants of a once grand staircase, which the archaeologists say was the king's palace. Now, whether it was King David or King Solomon, we don't know, and whether it was to the palace, we also don't know. I mean, the archaeologists try to piece it together. But it's a grand colonnade, a tremendous staircase. But he had you can believe that he had a big palace, right? He had 1,000 wives, so he... Nechoshes Memorot. It was made out of burnished bronze, burnished copper, beaten to the shape, and the bronze was the bronze copper that they used was an expensive metal, and it was a very decorative metal, and it was used extensively. We find remnants of that type of metal. Some say it's like the patina metal that you find in Israel today, that greenish copper that was used, and they burnished it. The king had the molds formed and the bronze poured into the molds in the valley of the Jordan. The Mave Ha'adomo, there they had special earth to make the molds for it, to be able to hold it. Then Sukkos and Ben Tzorosa. It was between the cities of Sukkos and Tzorosa, which is today, where the Damya Bridge is, at the Allenby Bridge and the Damya Bridge across the Jordan into this country of Jordan. So it's east of Jerusalem and slightly north of Jerusalem. It's north of Jericho. So that is where they found, because in order to make china, and in order to, you need molds and you need clay, you need certain types of sand, etc. And there in the shore of the River Jordan is where Shlomo found what he needed. When we were in Holland, all the Delft china that you buy from Holland comes from England. I mean, the clay comes from England. They make it in Holland. But the clay comes from England because that's the special clay that they're able to get it to turn that color. Vayanach Shlomo is called Kelim Merov Ma'od Ma'od. And Shlomo made kelim without limit. Ma'od Ma'od, much. Made everything that he needed, more than he needed. Lo nechkar mishkal anachoshes. He never asked how much the weight of the bronze was. If money was no object. Vayas Shlomo is called Kelim Asher Beis Hashem. So Shlomo manufactured all of the kelim that were necessary for the house of God. Eis Mizbach Hazov, the golden altar, which was the altar for the spices, for the incense. With Shulchan, the great table. So this was a second table. This was aside from the table that was in the Mishkan. He made another grand golden table. Asher olav lechem aponim zoho. V'esa menorot, and he made, aside from the menorah that Moshe made, he made an additional 10 golden menorahs that flanked this menorah. So there were 11 menorahs. 5 and 5, and the great menorah in the middle. as a menorah chomesh miyamin v'chomesh mismol lifnei advir, that stood in front of the Holy of Holies, Zohar Sogur, the most expensive gold, prohibitive gold, 24 karat. Vahaperach, and he made on them flowers and embroidery and fancy designs. Vahaneros, and the cups to hold the wicks, Vamelkochayim, and the tongs that they used to fill the cups and to move the wicks. All of that was made out of gold. The tools were made out of gold. The matches were out of gold. Vasipos, vamazamros, vamizrikos, vakapos, vamachtos. The spoons, with the spoons and the forks, and some say the musical instruments, and the incense burners, and the fry pans, and the sprinkling, the blood that they used to sprinkle the blood. Everything was made out of pure gold. Solomon did not spare anything. So that's why the first Beis HaMikdash was so opulent, the second Beis HaMikdash was so poor. When the second Beis HaMikdash was built, so it says that the Skenim Shabos Ador, those that remember the first Beis HaMikdash wept. Because the second Beis HaMikdash was built out of wood. They didn't have any gold. They didn't have any of this. So others rejoiced that they were zocher to see the Beis HaMikdash. But those who saw the first Beis HaMikdash of Solomon and who lived the 70 years to see the second one, they wept because the opulence was gone. Solomon's building, here's just the gold flow. The handles for the doors were made of gold. The dalse abayis laheichol, and all of the entrances, all of the hardware for all of the entrances for the entire temple, everything was gold. Everything was gold. Everything was fashioned so beautifully. So, as I mentioned to you many times, Shlomo HaMelech is the zenith of the Jewish people. We have never reached such a time again, both in terms of spirituality and in terms of physical wealth and imperial strength, etc. That was the high point. From then on, it unfortunately has been downhill. Some ups and some downs, but basically downhill. And that description here of how the Beis HaMikdash was created, that's the companion piece to the Kalim here described in the Parsha Vayakail as to what the Kalim were when the Mishkan itself was created as well.